This episode is about everything. The universe. Where did it come from? Where will it go? Where did it come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Since the ancient Greeks, there have been people who think that the universe was designed by some sort of deity. Exactly what sort of deity depends on who you ask. Some say Jehovah, some say Allah, some say the universe was sneezed out of the nose of the Great Green Archel, but all proponents say that the universe was designed by some sort of intelligence. This position is known as the teleological argument, from the Greek word telos, meaning purpose. Purpose. Not to be confused with the cosmological argument, which says that the universe must have had a first cause. Different thing, don't get them mixed up. The teleological argument usually involves looking at some feature of the world and going, hey look, that must be designed. The most famous example is William Paley's story about finding a watch on the ground. If we found a watch on the ground and had no idea what a watch was, we would still know, Paley thought, that it was designed, because it clearly serves a purpose, and all the parts are suited to that purpose, and if any of the parts was missing or was differently shaped, then it wouldn't work. So somebody must have ordered it. That conclusion would be even more inescapable if we saw that the watch was able to give birth to lots of tiny watches. If it can reproduce itself, then it must be even more complex. And even if we found out that that watch came from a mummy watch and a daddy watch and so on and so on and so on and so on, we'd still have to explain where the first watch came from. And so it is with the universe and all the things in it. Animals and organs and even the earth itself are so suited to their purpose and so intricate and complex that they must have been designed. Or so Paley thought. We shouldn't underestimate just how powerful this argument was for its time. Atheism was on the rise in Paley's day, but one of the major challenges to it was this argument. If you were an atheist, people would say, well, how come animals? Checkmate, atheist. Of course, 57 years after Paley published his work, one of the most important books ever written came out and blew his arguments out of the water, at least as far as the design of biological organisms was concerned. As Darwin discovered, organisms and their component parts actually are not designed. They arise through a quite mindless process. They end up suited to their environment not because somebody ordered them that way, but because of an extremely lengthy process of natural selection. That's just one of those awesome cases where philosophy gets a solid, real answer from the world of science. But whoa. Darwin explained how organisms change. He didn't explain where they come from. Humans and other organisms arose through a mindless process, but what if somebody designed the first organism? Where does life come from? How do abiogenesis? That's a good question, and the answer is...
I don't know.
There are some solid ideas, but at the moment it's a little unclear, and so a lot of people say God must have done it. But do you see how I don't know is not the same as saying God did it? At the moment, the abiogenesis box is blank, and whatever humanity puts in that box eventually will have to be very thoroughly tested. Just because we don't know the answer doesn't mean we can make up whatever answer we want. That's what philosophers call God of the gaps. And even if you did put God in that box, which God are you going to put in? Allah, Thor, Odin, Hercules, Ra? How are you going to choose? But the teleological argument wasn't licked yet. It just needed to think bigger, and it became what is nowadays called the fine-tuning argument. The argument goes that if any of the fundamental forces of the universe were just slightly different, then life could not arise. Like, what are the odds that gravity is just the right strength to stop the universe collapsing as soon as it formed? And what are the odds that the strong and weak nuclear forces would be just right to stop atoms flying apart or collapsing in on each other? Seems like a long shot. The philosopher Richard Swinburne puts it like this. Suppose you are strapped to a machine that shuffles 10 decks of cards and then deals out 10 cards from that pile randomly. The machine will automatically kill you unless it deals 10 aces of hearts, one from each deck, a combination that is staggeringly unlikely. But lo and behold, it happens. Now, which would you be more likely to believe? That you just got lucky? Or would you call hacks? This argument gained quite a bit of attention in the early 2000s when it contributed to famous atheist philosopher Antony Flew changing his mind and becoming a deist, but it has some pretty big problems. To go over some of them just very quickly, we don't know how to make a universe. It might sound sensible to say that the odds of the universe turning out this way as opposed to any other way were very, very slim, but we don't know that. We don't know how universes form. It might be the case that this is the only way to have a universe, in which case the odds of it being this way are 1 in 1. We don't know, but again, I don't know is not a reason to say God did it. The universe might be finely tuned in the sense that if its fundamental numbers were just slightly different, then it would be very different, but designed to support life? If that's the case, then why is so much of the universe empty and uninhabitable? Why is there so much destruction of stuff? Colliding galaxies, burning out suns, finite stars. Life doesn't so much seem to flourish as we'd expect if the universe had been designed with it in mind, so much as desperately cling to only one corner of the universe that we know about, unless, of course, the designer wasn't very good. If the universe was designed, then where did the designer come from? Was he, she, it, they also designed? And if the designer themselves didn't need a designer, then why not just say that the universe didn't need a designer and cut out the extra bit? And finally, even if you could establish that the universe was ordered by some intelligence, that doesn't show that that intelligence parted the Red Sea, or died on the cross, or answers prayers, or cares about us at all. In fact, given all the stuff we were saying about the universe earlier on being quite uninhabitable, that might be taken as evidence that the designer doesn't care about us. That is a lot of philosophical ground that we've just covered in a very short amount of time. The debate goes on. And on. And on. What do you guys think? Was the universe designed? Was it fine-tuned? Send me your questions, comments, queries, and comebacks underneath the video on Facebook, Twitter, or by email. You can also let me know whether you'd like the next episode to be about some metaphysics. We could do alternate realities exist? Or we could do we have free will? Subscribe to Join the Philosophers and leave a like if you... Whoa! I loved all the comments underneath our last video, but it was a platonic love. Let's see what the Philosophers had to say about Plato's Republic. Mike O raised a very interesting question of whose fault is it if your platonic inner soul balance is off? Like, some people will be born with naturally weaker reasons or naturally stronger appetites, so they'll be unjust in the sense that Plato defines it, but it's not really their fault, so is it a moral failing? I think Plato would probably say that we all have a duty to moral improvement, and even though that's harder for some people than it is for others, the people for whom it is harder don't get off so easily. I'm not sure whether he would make allowances for people who are unjust in the sense he describes it because of mental illness. I hope he would. Lahal Krichevskoy said that justice is good only insofar as it is useful to you. That is pretty much what one of the characters in Book 1 of the Republic, a guy called Thrasymachus, says. He says that justice is just the advantage of the stronger. The bits of the Republic we talked about are Plato arguing against that and saying, no, justice is actually its own thing, objectively good, independent of whether or not it's good for you. He basically says that what is advantageous to you might sometimes be morally bad, but justice is always morally good because of the reasons we talked about, so they can't be the same. Piolytics had a very interesting idea and said that it would take a balanced soul, in the sense that Plato defines it, to be wicked. Like, it would take a very strong reason and very controlled spirit and appetite in order to convince everyone that you were good when actually you're really evil. That's brilliant. That means that justice, as Plato defines it as a harmony between these three parts of the soul, might not actually be good in itself. I think he would reply, though, that somebody who was truly wise, which remember is one of the requirements for being just, would understand the form of the good, which is something he talks about but we didn't have time to go into, sadly. Basically, if you were really wise, you would understand what goodness is, so you would never do bad. So if you are bad, you can't be wise, and if you can't be wise, you can't be just. Sam Burns drew a parallel between the ideal society that Plato designs in the Republic and the futuristic London that Aldous Huxley presents in Brave New World. Brave New World is my second favourite novel in the world. The first is The Last Man by Mary Shelley. That's a very interesting parallel. I suppose the key difference is that Plato's Republic is ordered to be maximally good, whereas futuristic London in Brave New World is ordered so that everyone is maximally happy, and we're invited to suspect that that might not be a good thing. I suppose in that sense you could read Brave New World as being a critique of utilitarianism. That's all I've got time for this week. I will see you next week for a very special collaboration episode. Get excited. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye!
Like no other.